Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. So this is going to be an interesting video for some of you out there and a unique kind of video for most of my longtime viewers and subscribers. But we do have to discuss this. On February 16th of this year, 2021, I uploaded a video that was about Marvel Universe trading cards. And the title of the video, I think, was Do Not Invest in Marvel Universe Trading Cards for the Long Term. And that video was very important because not only did I talk about the rise and the origins of the Marvel Universe trading cards, but I also talked about just how different the back issue vintage comic book market was back in the 1990s compared to today in the year 2021. As I've said before on this channel, there was a lot of catalysts that interfered in that market. If you don't know what I mean by catalysts, CGC was a catalyst that came into that market, changed it forever, and caused values to rise. Another catalyst was the coming of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which pretty much put all these superheroes front and center to the point where you can't escape them if you go on television, the movies, or even if you go on any of the streaming networks or platforms, whether it be Netflix or Disney Plus, of course, or even Amazon Prime, you're bound to come across a superhero movie. And that is part of the reason why prices are soaring for a lot of vintage comic books. Now, to be fair, pre-1975, pre-1965 comic books, in my opinion, they are quickly becoming part of the established markets in the antiques and collectibles trade. For those of you out there that have yet to see all my videos on this channel, I talk an awful lot about three main market paradigms that govern the antiques and collectibles trade. On one hand, you have speculative markets. After speculative markets comes established markets. And after established markets comes mature or sophisticated markets. So for instance, if you're looking at an item to invest long term in the antiques and collectibles trade, and it is something like a historical document or a rare coin or a rare piece of currency, obviously you're investing in a mature or sophisticated market. If you're looking at something like a vintage sports card or maybe a vintage comic book from like 1968, that is more often than not part of the established market in the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, if we're talking about Marvel Universe trading cards, modern era Magic the Gathering products, modern era comic books, modern era Pokemon cards, Flesh and Blood, all those hot products, they are part of the speculative side of the antiques and collectibles trade. You must be very careful how you analyze these markets. But getting back to this video, one of the things that I was always disappointed by YouTube, and before I even go there, I want to state that none of the content I have planned for this channel is changing. I want to assure you guys. This is just me letting off a little bit of steam before we get to the crux of this video. But one of the things that I'm always disappointed in is when I see a video that I shot literally in less than half an hour in one take and just upload it to YouTube, when that video gets something like 7,000 views in less than a week, and other videos where I go into depth on talking to you guys about how the markets in the antiques and collectibles trade operate, whether we're talking about organic collectability versus mass-produced scarcity, or maybe we're talking about market manipulation, or maybe, again, we're talking about the different markets that make up the antiques and collectibles trade. I don't think you guys realize there's videos on this channel that are 20 to 40 minutes long that I have 4 to 6 hours invested in these videos, and they only have 2,000 to 3,000 views at present time. So when I see something like a video that I literally shot on the cuff, literally came down here, turned on the camera, did it in one take, upload it to YouTube, get 7,000 views in less than 7 days of being uploaded to YouTube, I'm kind of blown away by how YouTube operates, by how the overall YouTube community gravitates towards some of this content, whether it's hype-driven or not. It really tells me that a lot of people out there don't want to know the specifics of these markets. They just want to watch anything with a flashy title or a unique point of view that they may agree with or they may disagree with. Now, again, none of the content on this channel is changing. I want to reassure you guys of that. But those of you that know me, you know I write for Antiques and Auction News. If I write one article for Antiques and Auction News, it can potentially be seen by millions of people. I don't get the same feedback from the articles that I write for Antiques and Auction News that I do when I upload a video on YouTube that gets 7,000 views. And obviously, there's both positive comments and negative comments on a lot of these videos. Now, to be fair, I want to be clear on this. The video on Marvel Universe trading cards was not an overtly negative received video. If you don't believe me, just look at the percentage of thumbs up I got versus the percentage of thumbs down. Yes, there were a lot more thumbs down than some of my normal videos. I think I got like 50 some thus far thumbs down on the Marvel Universe trading card video, and I got like 300 and some, still going strong, thumbs up on that video. So there are people that like it, and there are people out there that are critical of it. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through some of the comments of some of the critics who have left a comment for me in that particular video. Now, to be fair, I just want to state several things before we get to these comments. I'm not trying to cut anybody up. I want to be very clear on that. We all have different perspectives. We're all in this market at different levels. I've said this before. I have people that watch this channel that make $50,000 or less. On the other side of the spectrum, I have people that watch this channel that I know firsthand are sitting on net worths of millions upon millions of dollars. We are all at different levels of knowledge and where we're at in our lives. So I want to make sure, even if you cut me up in the comment section, I am not cutting you up by doing this response video. What I am trying to do is get some of you guys out there where maybe this may be the only video that you watched of mine thus far to get you thinking in the right direction to expand your horizons. So I am going to respond to some of these comments, and I'm going to be very direct in my response. Now, there is something that I do have to warn you about, though. As you can imagine, all YouTube videos get troll comments. And unfortunately, a lot of the trolls out there are not really intellectually gifted, if I can use that word. So for some of these comments, and I know some of them are troll comments, I actually had to clean up the grammar and English just so that I can present them to you in this video, because if I would read them the way that they're written, you guys wouldn't even know what the hell they were saying in most cases. I hate to say that. So we're going to get right in, and I'm going to give you my response to some of these comments. First comment, and I really don't consider this a troll comment. I think this person is completely misunderstood on the content that I produced, though. So that's why I want to make a point to read this exactly how he wrote it, and I'm going to give my response. Sean, I remember almost a year ago when you told me about how sports cards were a bad investment. I'm up $270,000 in the last 6 months. How much longer can you ignore this market? Okay, to be fair, he really didn't cut me up. He just misinterpreted a lot of the videos that I've done on this topic. And I can prove this because I write for Antiques and Auction News. Every article that I've ever written, I have a physical copy of, guys. So I can tell you that firsthand. So first, I did do 1 or 2 videos on sports card collecting on this particular channel. I didn't spend a lot of time on it. But if you go back and watch that video, what I said in that video is, if you are investing in sports cards for the long term, you want to go after vintage cards. If you are investing in cards for the short term, meaning you're the flipper, you want to go after modern cards because at present time, there is a massive speculative bubble that is opened up when it comes to modern era sports cards. I personally would not invest in modern era sports cards for the long term. Go back and watch that video, and that is exactly what you will find. And we're going to come back to this later in this video because I do want to respond to another gentleman's comment on this, and that will take us right here to Antiques and Auction News. So I do want to state, if you are going after sports cards, again, the modern era market is extremely speculative. If you're a flipper, you want to flip to the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters out there, you want to make your money like this guy made $275,000 in the last 6 months. Hey, brother, it's capitalistic society. I support you 100%. I got nothing against you. But I will say your comprehension on some of my videos is a little lacking. You should go back and watch some of my earlier videos because I talk an awful lot about that. Next question or comment that we're going to respond to. Sean, compared to sports cards, the overall population reports are low on these Marvel Universe trading cards. These are undervalued, not overvalued. Well, first of all, I'm not going to comment on the fact, and I did a video on this, no antique and collectible that is selling on an established market, meaning it's being sold through Heritage or Hakes or Comic Link or Morphe's or Christie's or Sotheby's, an item like that in the antiques and collectibles trade can never be quote unquote undervalued or overvalued. That refers more to stocks, bonds, equities, real estate, where I can analyze the fundamentals, where I can analyze cash flows, debt to asset ratios. So be very careful when you are referring to antiques and collectibles as being quote unquote undervalued or overvalued, because those terms really don't belong in the antiques and collectibles trade. But getting to the crux of your argument, I want to read it again. Sean, compared to sports cards, the overall population reports are low on these. You are making a major mistake here, my friend, and I want to set you on a correct path. You are comparing the market for a speculative collectible, which is what Marvel Universe trading cards are at present time in the year 2021, and you are comparing that market to a market like sports cards, specifically vintage sports cards. That is a major mistake because you are looking at this from the perspective that these markets are equal. They are not. Marvel Universe trading cards are speculative. Vintage sports cards are established. Now, if you're looking at this where you're comparing it to modern era sports cards, then yes, you can make that assumption because both of those markets are speculative. But based on the way your comment is worded, you're not telling me that. You are simply comparing it to sports cards, apples to apples, and those markets are not apples to apples. So please go watch the video where I did and talked about speculative versus established versus mature markets in the trade, and also watch the video that I did where I talked about collector-driven markets versus investor-driven markets, and you will have your answer, my friend. Next comment. This guy is only looking in his circle. Only geeks and nerds bought these in 1990. You are 100% correct on that assessment. I'm going to be honest. Yes, you're absolutely right. Only geeks and nerds bought these in 1990, meaning Marvel Universe trading card games. The problem is the people that did buy them and kept them, there are many out there, guys. You got to look at supply versus demand. You can't just look, well, only geeks and nerds bought these. You could say that about Magic the Gathering. You could say that about a lot of the other failed card games that came out in the 1990s. You could say that about G.I. Joe trading cards. Believe it or not, research it. They actually made G.I. Joe trading cards in either the late 1980s or the early 1990s. I used to have them as a kid. There's tons out there on the secondary market. There's tons out there sitting in binders, in collections. If that market pops, you're going to have a lot of people going to those collections, sending them in for grading, and flipping them on the secondary market. So what you are missing, yes, maybe only geeks and nerds bought these in 1990, but here's the problem. It really doesn't matter. Do you want to know why? Because everybody saved them. I know firsthand there were people back in the day that owned comic book shops that got cases of this stuff, and they saved them. There is 2 individuals that I know in Pennsylvania that have storage units full of stuff like this from the 1990s that they owned a comic book shop. It went under, and guess what? They've been storing the inventory for this long because they either have an emotional attachment to it or they suspected at some point the market would pop and they could sell into it and make a lot of money, guys. Make no mistake, this stuff is out there. Now, you also state, this guy is looking at this only in his circle. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm an analyst in the entire antiques and collectibles trade. I don't pick sides. There's people that come to me and go, Sean, I want to be like you. I want to invest in rare coins. What do I tell those people? It's a very sophisticated market. Use caution. If you don't have a passion for investing in rare coins, don't invest in rare coins. I have no horse in this race, guys. Please understand. Speaking of horses involved in the race, let's go into the next question. I think this guy just wanted to make a video to get views or to steer people away from these particular collectibles. There are people that do this to try to control the market by making YouTube videos. Now, this person is really flipping the script. This is a form of projection. I'm going to be 100% honest. Ever since I've started this channel, I told you guys that this channel would never get to 100,000 subscribers because I am a contrarian in the trade. This whole channel was created in response to the hype-driven YouTube channels out there that continue to push products like this day in and day out with no regard to the market. There's people that have channels where they talk about the next big Pokemon cards to invest in, or the top 5 or top 10 vintage comic books to invest in, or the top 5 or top 10 Marvel Universe trading cards to invest in. Those are hype-driven channels. I'm sorry, my friend. This is not a hype-driven channel. Otherwise, I would have launched it completely different, and I would have a lot more subscribers right now. At the end of the day, most people don't want to watch a channel where somebody goes into in-depth finance, business, and economics talk about the antiques and collectibles trade. I am 100% serious. A lot of the people, when I came to them and I said, hey, I have this idea for this YouTube channel. I'm just going to be a part-time YouTuber. You know what they told me? Don't do it, Sean. It's not going to be as successful as the hype-driven channels out there. And even if it becomes successful, all the hype-driven channels are going to go against you because you're not going with the flow. You're a contrarian. And I said, but facts don't lie. And you want to know what they told me? Sean, on YouTube, the facts don't matter. And I refuse to believe that. And that's why I'm doing this channel. It is not to favor antiques and discredit collectibles, or to prop up the value of certain collectibles, or to tell you, hey, these antiques are worth investing in, but ignore these pop culture items. That's 100% false. Markets don't work like that. It's not all black and white, guys. Okay? Next comment, and I love this one. Just people who move their arms as much as you do, I learn not to trust. You remind me of Dr. Fauci or Nancy Pelosi. Well, first, thank you to the nods of people who, in my opinion, are doing a great job in their respectful roles. Being 100% honest with that assessment, feel free to unsubscribe or hate me in the comment section below. But what I will tell you is this is Darwinism at its finest. If you want to try to discredit Dr. Fauci, who is pretty much one of the top doctors at present time commenting on the coronavirus, you're probably going to have some problems going forward, because if you're not aware, the whole world is pretty much encased in a worldwide pandemic at present time. So if you want to put me and compare me in your mind to the likes of Nancy Pelosi and Dr. Fauci, feel free. Full disclosure, I'm not really a fan of Nancy Pelosi, 100% honest. I mean, I'm more of a Bernie Sanders guy, but I guess I'll take it. I mean, it could be worse. So that's all that I'm going to say on that particular comment. I will tell you, please take some critical thinking skills, because I really, really would hate to see your net worth, because it's most likely negative, because no sane person would make a comment like that and actually have the money and the power to do what they wanted to do in their life, especially if you're leaving a comment like that on YouTube. 100% honest. I know you're a troll. Good luck to you. Enjoy. Next comment. Don't believe this guy. I don't think he collects cards. I don't see any in the video. Yes, I forgot. If I'm going to talk about the Mona Lisa, I have to fly all the way to Europe, get a ticket to the Louvre, and actually stand in front of the Mona Lisa to discuss that particular market, meaning the high-end art market. I didn't realize that every time I talk about an antique or collectible, I have to go into my personal vaults or my personal collections, bring out a crap ton of these collectibles and put them in the background just so that you guys can take me serious. I mean, it's not enough that I have, over 200 videos on YouTube, that I write articles for the trade, that the New York Times, that other publications have came and interviewed me on the subject matter of antiques and collectibles. But because I don't have any Marvel Universe trading cards in the background, obviously you want to discredit the video. That makes total sense to me. My friend, let me give you 100% advice here. Subscribe or unsubscribe from this channel. Do what you must. But go and watch the hype-driven channels. This channel is not for you. You're not going to like it here. Next question or comment I want to respond to. False logic, Sean. Let me explain. How many of these cards were thrown out? Now we're talking about the supply side again. And it's kind of funny because just on this note, these are some of the comments that I got as well, guys. PSA 10s are not hard to get. I also had people telling me PSA 10s are impossible to get. I had people telling me there are not a lot of supply out there of these cards. I can tell you firsthand there are, versus I know someone would seal cases of this stuff. So you guys tell me, the supply only matters if there is consistent demand, and the demand has to be organic. Otherwise, you're going to have a Beanie Baby fiasco. That's what caused Beanie Babies to crash. Yes, there was supply out there. There was also demand, but the demand was manipulated. It was fugazi. It was made to believe that these items would continuously go up in value. And when that didn't happen, and when people wanted to pull out of the market crashed. So you guys, a lot of you, are only looking at either the supply side of this fundamental equation, or you're looking at the demand side. You have to take both into account, and you have to analyze it properly. You got to look at the supply, and you also have to look at demand and go, is this organic demand? Is this going to last? Are kids born in the year 2005, 2010, are they going to flock to collecting 1990 Marvel Universe trading cards? I'm going to answer that for you. The answer is predominantly no. So this is a great short-term item to flip if you have it and you want to sell it to the Timmys, Kimmys, and Poindexters out there who don't understand how these markets work. But overall, if you are attempting to hold these items for the long term, you are going to get burned. If you are one of these people paying $3,000 to $4,000 for a PSA 10 at present time, most likely you are going to get burned. Be very careful in this market. Next comment that I want to respond to. Sean, you think this market is crazy? You need to look up what PSA 10 garbage pail kids are selling for. Yes, I understand. I'm going to be doing a video on that as well. I'm waiting for all the hype to die down on this video that I just released. But we do have to talk about garbage pail kids on this particular channel, specifically the market for vintage garbage pail kids, because that market is just as speculative as this one, guys. If you don't like the advice that I'm giving in this particular video where I talk about do not invest in Marvel Universe trading cards for the long term, you're most likely not going to like the advice that I give in that video where I tell you don't invest in garbage pail kids for the long term. Both these markets are extremely speculative and they are being manipulated en masse at present time. There's a lot of garbage pail kids out there. To be fair, the very first series, there is a lot less supply of the first series than there are of subsequent series. But overall, they're still in abundance. They are by no means rare. So you guys got to understand that when you get involved in these markets. You have to analyze them from the standpoint, okay, what's really going on in this market? How can I analyze supply? How do I understand demand? And is this something that I can make money in over the short term, the long term, or do I not even care about that? Do I just have an emotional attachment to these particular items and want to own them? If that's where you fall on this spectrum, then you really have to analyze the market properly, because if you say, you know what, I'm willing to pay $4,000 for a vintage PSA 10 garbage pail kid, you got to understand that if you put that in your collection, 10 years from now, that same card may sell for a lot less than the $4,000 that you paid to own it back in the year 2021. So please understand that, guys. I don't have a crystal ball, but I have been using these techniques and the fundamentals that I teach on this channel for literally over 30 years in the antiques and collectibles trade, and it served me well. It has never failed me. So to see some of these comments, I'm going to state to you guys one last time, you need to go back and watch some of my earlier videos before you comment. All your answers are there. And if you do not, please take the time to read my articles in Antiques and Auction News. Which brings me to the last inquiry or comment that I do want to respond to. And please understand that when I say this, I do it from the bottom of my heart. I'm not trying to cut any of you guys up. This is the comment. Yeah, and I bet about 2 years ago, he was going to say sports cards were going to take off. This is one of pure irony. If you actually go back and you read one of the articles that I wrote in the fall of 2019 for Antiques and Auction News, and then again in January or February of the year 2020, you will see that I actually said that sports cards are starting to take off. If you want to invest in sports cards for the long term, go after vintage sports cards. If you want to speculate in that market, go after modern era cards for the short term. That's literally what I said in the articles that I wrote. You can go back and read this stuff. It's not hard to find, guys. I'm not trying to mislead you. I had to do this particular video because I am getting bombarded with comments, emails. I have people contacting me who I've never even met before that are trying to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Facebook, I mean, every which way possible to give their commentary on this market. And if you would just go back and watch my earlier videos, all your answers are there. Thanks for watching. I hope you appreciated this video. If you got nothing out of it, let me know in the comment section below, because I'm sure some of these people where I quoted their comments from, guess where they're going to be? They're going to flow right into this comment section and start wanting to get into a discussion about these particular talking points. Guys, I'm done responding to a lot of the rhetoric on this particular content. I'm going on to something else. Please join me. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.